Number two, the E in health, does that person have empathy for the person that they hurt? Do I have empathy for the person I hurt? And listen, and do I care that what I did actually caused someone pain? Empathy is the vicarious experiencing of another person's experience. It's being able to step into their shoes in a sense and see the world through their eyes, to understand how they think, to understand how they feel, to know what you did and how it made them feel. And that's empathy. But empathy also has a sense of, do I care around it? All right. Do I care? Do you feel that way? Do I care? Do you think that way? Do I care that what I did affected you? That's empathy. A lack of empathy wouldn't care. A lack of empathy wouldn't have compassion. Does the person have empathy for you? Is there a sense of remorse and a sense of grief that what they did caused pain? And do they seek to understand the pain they caused through empathy and care? True empathy. The offender would care. Listen, the offender would care more about the pain that they caused than the frustrations that their actions have caused themselves. And true empathy, the offender will care more about the consequences and effects of what they did to the other person than about what the consequences of their choices are doing to them. They're willing to own the consequences of their choices. Why? Because I care. I never want to hurt you again. And it becomes a motivation to never do it again. That's the power of empathy. Our culture has lost empathy today. Yeah, we have empathy for dogs and maybe kids. We didn't notice that people groups don't have empathy for other people groups. We don't have any sense of understanding of how things are for another person. If you've watched our country here in the United States, in particular, for those who are around the world watching this right now, I'm going to be speaking primarily to the United States. There's a couple of books that have been written that kind of gives you the emotional state of America as a whole. The first book is by Diana West. It's called The Death of the Grown-Up: How America's Arrested Development is Bringing Down Western Civilization. An interesting subtitle. The idea in her book is that America is an adolescent nation at the emotional level. And because we're an adolescent at the emotional level, we actually handle conflict in immature and unhealthy and uncaring ways. I think it's true. Her book goes on to say we also deal with foreign affairs and diplomatic issues from an adolescent emotional perspective as well. You see, whenever you deal with things from an immature posture, you're not going to have empathy, because the adolescent brain, the childish brain, though it can care about certain things, it also in conflict tends to move to defensiveness. It tends to go to that fight, flight, or freeze, which is more about survival. It's more about me. But mature adults, research shows, healthy and mature adults, by mature adults, I'm talking emotionally mature. You could be a rocket scientist and very immature. Maturity is about the development of what's known as a limbic system brain, where you're able to regulate emotional energy, and you're aware of when you're in negative emotional energy, and you're able to regulate it, self-control. Research shows that mature emotional adults, they, in conflict, move to compassion and empathy in conflict, where immature adults in conflict move to the defensive lower order, and it will bring that back down here. You see, so do I have empathy? If I have empathy, then you get a sense of me. You get a sense that I'm owning what I did, but more importantly, you get a sense that I care about what I did and how it affected you, to the point you can feel that care. You can feel that remorse in the offender. So the first of the acronym HEALTH is the person humble. Secondly, do they have empathy, all right, for the person that they hurt? Number 3, the letter A in HEALTH is, have I acknowledged the pain I caused? Have I actually acknowledged the pain that I caused? I wrote here, true forgiveness means that the offender has acknowledged their offense. They've acknowledged the offense, the effects that it has had, and the relational violations that the offense has created. You get that? I acknowledge not just what I did, I acknowledge that it had an effect, and I acknowledge what those effects actually are. I can discern those effects. I can see them in front of me. I acknowledge I'm the one who sent that message. I'm the one that caused that pain. I'm the one that made you feel betrayed. I'm the one that hurt you this way. I'm the one, whatever it might be, right? And the relational violations that the offense has created. I'm the one that caused you not to trust me. I'm the one who made you feel betrayed. I'm the one that taught you to fear me. I'm the one. Those are relational violations. And they're able to acknowledge not just what they did and the effect it had on me, they're able to acknowledge the violations in the relationship that offense has created. You know, a lot of people can go, okay, I did it. I can see you're hurt. Get over it. That's immature, right? We talked about that earlier, right? That's an immature apology because one, there's pride there. They've not moved to empathy and they're not humble. But more importantly, they have no idea of what they've done and the relational violations. What they're actually teaching you is basically this: don't trust them more. You see, whenever you have an immature apology, which is really about getting caught and you're sad that you got caught or upset you got caught, you're teaching the person not to trust you because you have not fully acknowledged your offense and the effects of your offense on the individual and on the relationship. You're actually teaching the person not to trust you. And you're creating it yourself. We must be able to have the humility to acknowledge what we've done, the effects that it's had on the other person, and the effects it's had on the relationship. And by the way, that takes empathy, and that takes humility in particular. It takes humility. Now, humility will move you to the empathy, and humility will move you to the acknowledgement or stage of this, all right? That you'll actually acknowledge what you've done, because empathy will. Pride will rationalize it, deflect it, project it, deny it. That's the nature of pride in and of itself. So have I acknowledged the pain that I caused, the effects it had on the person, and the relational violations as well? In other words, have I, as the offender, fully acknowledged the nature of my wrongs in all of its effects? Sometimes we wouldn't know, would we? Sometimes we may not have the self-awareness or the understanding of what I've done. But a mature apology, if they didn't understand, might say something like this, could you help me understand how what I did hurt you? They want to get the information so they can acknowledge exactly what it is they've done, because they want to know what they've done. You can't acknowledge something if you don't know it, right? And so healthy people will actually ask the question, what have I done and how has it hurt you? What was the effects on you? What message did I send you? Those are questions I ask. What message did I send? What was the nature of my wrong? How did that affect you? How is what I've done, how has it changed you? Things like that. And then I can fully acknowledge that, wow, when I did this, it had these ripple effects. And you go, yes, it did. Forgive me. I was wrong. I don't want to send that message to you. I don't want to send the message, I don't care that I'm this kind of person. The A in the acronym HEALTH of a good apology is, has the person acknowledge the pain that they caused and the effects it's had, not just on the offended person, but also on the relationship, the relational violations that have been violated. All right, H.E.A.L. A good apology will bring life back into the offender's soul, the person who was hurt. It allowed them to bring life back into their soul. You see, repentance is the path to restoring a relationship. When there's been relational violations, hurts, the way you start to do that is through repentance. Remember, true repentance, mature repentance, demands nothing. It'll just do what it needs to do to make things right. And because the offended person believes that the offender is humble and caring and acknowledge the wrongs, the victim of the offense begins to feel life again with that person. They begin to sense that there's a possibility of a relationship. You see, I wrote here, repentance is the path to restoring relationship. True repentance, but what I said earlier, the Bible calls godly sorrow, is the requirement for true repentance. True repentance opens the doorway for restoration, reconciliation of a relationship that has been harmed. So the question is, does your apology bring life back into the offender and into the relationship? I've had the old saying, eat crow. I've had to eat crow a lot over the years, right? Hurt my ways, and I hurt my wife in ways I didn't know I hurt her. Matter of fact, good example. You can hurt someone with not knowing it out of your own brokenness and woundedness. When we were engaged, we were planning the wedding and those kind of things. And back in those days, I was emotionally still a child, and I was very enmeshed with my father. If he said jump, I just jumped. My mood state was based on his perception of me. If he's happy with me, I was happy with me. If he wasn't happy with me, I wasn't happy with me. That's called enmeshment. Even though I had left home and joined the Navy, that emotional umbilical cord just stretches a long way. We chose for the wedding that the men were going to wear these gray, really nice, dark gray tuxes with mauve cummerbund and a bow tie to match the ladies' dresses, which would be like, that mauve color. I called and told my dad, this is what I need him to go pick up. You know what he said to me? He said, I ain't wearing that. You only wear black. I wear black or I don't come. And I just said, black it is. I would never stand up to my dad, do whatever he wanted. I had no sense of self to stand up for myself back in those days. So I just said black and told him, well, it's going to be black. I did not know how much that hurt her. I did not know how much that hurt her until a few years into the marriage. She mentioned it to me. I had no idea because I was so wounded. I couldn't see the effects of that decision, just making it unilateral on her. And when I started to own choices that I made and started changing those parts of me that would make those kinds of choices, it started bringing life back into her. She began to feel that she had value, that she had worth. She understood that I understood, and that I wouldn't cross those thresholds again to hurt her like that. A good apology will bring life back into the offended soul. But I think it brings life back into the offender's soul as well. Why? You let it go. You've been forgiven and you move on. You just change what you need to change. Move on. That was the letter L. Does it bring life back into the offended soul?